The notification lit up my screen at 2:47 a.m. One new voicemail from James. My fiancé. The man I was supposed to marry in 3 months. I almost didn't listen to it. I wish I hadn't. Because sometimes, the truth doesn't set you free. Sometimes, it just shows you how blind you've been. My name is Amelia Morrison, and for 2 years, I thought I was living a fairy tale. James Carter walked into my life at a corporate event, all charm and confidence, with a smile that made you forget your own name. He was a financial consultant. I was a graphic designer trying to build my freelance business. We were the couple everyone envied. He proposed on a beach at sunset, the ring catching the last golden rays of daylight. My friends squealed. My co-workers celebrated. Even strangers at restaurants would see the ring and congratulate us. I felt chosen, special, loved. But love, I've learned, can be a very convincing mask. The first red flag came disguised as concern. Amelia, you're so talented, but you're charging too little, James said one evening, scrolling through my client invoices. Let me help you restructure your rates. You trust me, right? I did. So I gave him access to my business accounts, my client contracts, my financial records. He was helping me grow, or so I believed. Within 6 months, James had convinced me to combine our finances. We're getting married anyway, he reasoned. This just makes things simpler. My savings account, the one I'd built from nothing, working late nights and weekends, slowly merged with his. Joint account. Joint decisions. Joint future. Except nothing about it was truly joint. I started noticing small things. Charges I didn't recognize. Money moving between accounts without explanation. When I asked, James would kiss my forehead and say, "Business expenses, sweetheart. Don't worry about the complicated stuff." And like a fool, I didn't. My freelance business began receiving fewer clients. Projects I'd been promised suddenly went to other designers. James assured me it was just a slow season. Focus on wedding planning, he'd say. Once we're married, you won't need to work so hard anyway. I'll take care of everything. That phrase echoed in my mind more times than I could count. I'll take care of everything. It sounded like love. It felt like control. 3 months before our wedding, I got a call from my best friend, Sophie Rodriguez. She worked in corporate law and had that sixth sense about people that I clearly lacked. "Amelia, I need to tell you something," she said, her voice careful. "And you're probably going to hate me for it." My stomach dropped. "What is it?" "I ran into James last week. At Riverside Bistro. With a woman." She paused. They weren't acting like business associates. My hands went cold. "Sophie, he has female clients. That doesn't mean." "She was wearing your grandmother's bracelet, Amelia." The world stopped. That bracelet. The antique gold piece my grandmother gave me before she passed. The one James said he'd taken to get cleaned. 6 months ago. "You're sure?" I whispered. "I'm sure. And Amelia, there's more. I did some digging. Quiet digging. James's financial consulting license? It expired 2 years ago. He never renewed it." The room tilted. "That's impossible. He has clients. He goes to meetings." "I don't know what he's doing," Sophie interrupted gently. "But whatever it is, it's not legitimate consulting. Please just be careful. Look into things before you marry him." I hung up feeling sick. But instead of confronting James immediately, I did something I'd never done before. I started watching, listening, paying attention to the details I'd been too trusting to notice. That's when the pattern emerged. James's business trips always coincided with withdrawals from our joint account. His client meetings lasted hours but produced no contracts, no income. The expensive watch he bought himself? Paid with my earnings. The car upgrade? Funded by a loan he took in my name. I felt the anger building, but I stayed quiet. Because I needed to know the full truth before I made my move. The night of the voicemail, James had told me he was visiting his brother in Portland for the weekend. I was home alone, trying to redesign my portfolio website, when my phone buzzed with that notification. One new voicemail from James. I pressed play, expecting maybe a drunk, I love you, or a butt dial. Instead, I heard background noise. Music. Laughter. A woman's voice. Then James, clear as crystal. Babe, she has no idea. The wedding's in 3 months, and after that, everything she has becomes community property. I've already restructured most of her client base to route through my accounts. My blood turned to ice. The woman laughed. It was bright, careless. You're terrible. What if she finds out? She won't. Amelia's too trusting. Too sweet. She actually believes I'm helping her career. He laughed. That laugh I'd loved. Now it sounded like poison. Her freelance business was worth almost $200K annually before I started redirecting clients. Now she barely makes $60K and thinks it's a market slowdown. And after the wedding? The woman asked. After the wedding, I'll convince her to sell her equipment, close the business. Focus on family, I'll say. She'll do it. Then we liquidate everything, file for separation, and I walk away with at least half. Maybe more if I play it right. What about the bracelet? The woman giggled. Consider it a preview, James said. There's more where that came from. The voicemail ended. 47 seconds that destroyed 2 years of my life. I sat frozen on my couch, the phone hot in my hand. My chest felt hollow. My brain struggled to process what I'd just heard. The man I was supposed to marry. The man I'd trusted with everything. He'd been systematically dismantling my life, piece by piece, and I'd helped him do it. But something else burned through the shock. Something sharp and clarifying. I didn't cry. I didn't call him. I didn't panic. Instead, I opened my laptop and started documenting everything. The next morning, I called in sick to my remaining freelance projects. Then I called Sophie. I need a lawyer, I said. A really good one. She didn't ask questions. Within an hour, I was sitting in the office of Patricia Greenwood, a sharp-eyed attorney who specialized in financial fraud. I played the voicemail. Her expression didn't change, but her pen moved faster across her notepad. This is admissible evidence, Patricia said when the recording ended. He confessed to financial manipulation and theft. But we need more to build a complete case. Tell me what to do, I said. My voice didn't shake. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize. I documented every transaction. Every forged signature on documents I didn't remember signing. Every client James had redirected, with my supposed approval. Patricia connected me with a forensic accountant named Stephen Liu, who traced the money trail like a bloodhound. This is organized fraud, Stephen said during one of our meetings. He's done this before. I'd bet money on it. Patricia nodded. I did some research. James Carter isn't even his real name. He's actually James Pembroke. He changed it legally 5 years ago after a similar scheme in Colorado. Different victim. Same pattern. My hands clenched. How many women? At least 3 that I could find. Maybe more. I felt sick. But I also felt something else. Determination. He wasn't going to walk away from this. Not this time. Meanwhile, I played the perfect fiancé. I smiled when James came home from his business trips. I discussed flower arrangements and seating charts. I acted like everything was normal, while I quietly moved my remaining assets into a separate account Patricia helped me set up. James noticed nothing. Why would he? I'd always been easy to fool. 2 weeks before the wedding, everything was ready. Patricia had filed a lawsuit. The police had opened an investigation into James's fraudulent activities. My assets were protected. My evidence was documented. Now I just needed to execute the final step. I invited James to our favorite restaurant. Antonio's, the Italian place where he'd first told me he loved me. The irony wasn't lost on me. He arrived smiling, suspecting nothing. 2 weeks, babe, he said, kissing my cheek. Then you're officially Mrs. Carter. Actually, I said, sliding an envelope across the table. We need to talk about that. He frowned. What's this? Open it. Inside were copies of everything. Bank statements. Forged documents. The forensic accountant's report. And a transcript of his voicemail, printed in black and white. The color drained from his face. Amelia, I can explain. No, I said calmly. You can't. I've heard the explanation. 2:47 a.m., remember? You called me by accident. Told your girlfriend exactly how you were planning to ruin my life. His jaw clenched. You're misunderstanding what you heard. Stop. My voice was steel. I have recordings, documents, testimony from 3 of your previous victims. You're not talking your way out of this. For the first time since I'd met him, James looked genuinely afraid. What do you want? I want everything you stole from me. Every cent. Every client you redirected. Every asset you took. I leaned forward. And then I want you to disappear. Or what? His fear was turning to anger now. I smiled. Not sweetly. Not kindly. Or I press charges for fraud, identity theft, and financial abuse. Patricia Greenwood is filing the lawsuit Monday morning. Detective Ramirez from Financial Crimes is very interested in talking to you. So here's what's going to happen. I laid it out step by step. He would return everything he'd stolen. He would sign documents releasing any claim to my assets. He would cancel the wedding and disappear from my life. In exchange, I wouldn't pursue criminal charges. You're bluffing, he said, but his voice wavered. I pulled out my phone and played another recording. This one was from 2 days ago. James on the phone with someone else, discussing how he'd almost have enough to retire after our wedding. His face crumbled. You've been recording everything. Everything, I confirmed. For 2 weeks. You really should check if your calls are going to voicemail, James. Or should I say James Pembroke? That did it. The fight went out of him like air from a balloon. 3 days later, James signed every document Patricia put in front of him. Every cent he'd taken was returned. Every fraudulent account was closed. Every stolen client was notified of his deception. My grandmother's bracelet was returned. Though I could barely stand to look at it now. The wedding was canceled. I sent a simple message to our guests. Due to unforeseen circumstances, the wedding will not take place. Thank you for your understanding. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. James left town. I heard through Sophie's connections that he'd moved to somewhere in Nevada. I didn't care where, as long as it was far from me. The months that followed were strange. Rebuilding my business was harder than I expected. Some clients came back. Others didn't. But I worked harder than I ever had, and slowly my income stabilized. Then grew. Therapy helped. Dr. Rachel Foster walked me through the manipulation tactics James had used. Gaslighting. Financial abuse. Isolation disguised as care. Naming them took away their power. You weren't stupid, Dr. Foster told me during one session. You were trusting. There's a difference. He exploited your kindness. That's on him, not you. Those words sat in my chest like medicine. Bitter, but healing. I also started volunteering at a women's financial literacy center, teaching freelancers and small business owners how to protect themselves. Every workshop I taught felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. The piece James had tried to take. One afternoon, almost a year after everything fell apart, I was working in my new studio apartment when Sophie called. You're not going to believe this, she said. James was arrested in Nevada. Same scheme. Different victim. But this time his history caught up with him. I felt something shift in my chest. Not quite satisfaction. Not quite relief. Just a quiet sense of justice. Good, I said simply. That evening, I walked through the city park near my apartment. The air was cool. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink. For the first time in 2 years, I felt light. Untethered. Free. I didn't need James's approval. I didn't need his validation. I didn't need anyone to take care of everything. I was taking care of myself just fine. If you've ever trusted someone who betrayed you, if you've ever felt foolish for believing in someone's lies, know this. Your trust wasn't the problem. Their dishonesty was. You're not weak for loving. You're not stupid for hoping. You're human. And sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is walk away from someone who doesn't deserve you and rebuild the life they tried to take. I'm Amelia Morrison. And this is my story.